All right, hello everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this presentation on a cool new program that we've got going here. We set it up this week or this year at Brindle Waye. It's called Code World. Again, my name is Chris Smith, and I'm the Director of Learning Technology with Brindle Waye. And what Brindle Waye does and what I do with Brindle Waye is a lot of the same stuff that a lot of people here are doing. We do instructional design and curriculum development. I've spent 15 years doing, leading in-class instructor-led training situations, designing e-learning, developing learning management systems, things like that. But what I'd like to talk to you about here today is none of that. It is instead what we've been doing in the K-12 education space to provide educational experiences for younger children, and in particular what we've learned from that and how we can apply those same kinds of ideas outside of that space back in our professional learning development where we work on a daily basis. So I'd like to tell you a little bit, first of all, about this Code World education program. Code World is an initiative that Brindle Waye has started this last school year, and we've been teaching a trial in schools this year. It is aimed at middle school students, so we're talking about education for children around the ages of 11 to 13. And what we've been doing is provide them with the ability to use technology to increase the hands-on manipulative aspect of mathematics education. So that's what our goal has been in this Code World program. It's something that as Brindle Waye we've been doing outside of our main core business area just to be more involved in our community, to give back to the community around us, and honestly just to have a little bit of fun. So we built this Code World program around a couple of different goals. Our first goal was to take ideas like algebra and geometry that children are encountering at a middle school education level and make them more tangible, more manipulatable, and more real. Because one of the things that's a challenge for math educators at that level is the fact that they're trying to teach really abstract concepts to people who are maybe not ready to reason at that level of abstraction. And so we wanted to make things more tangible and make it so that kids can get their hands on these ideas and manipulate them. I think you can relate that not just to that education level, but to a lot of the learning challenges we meet in the business world as well. Second, we wanted to build an education program that is not just about imparting knowledge or about going through a curriculum, but is also about giving people an opportunity for creative expression. And that increases the motivation factor in a lot of really interesting ways. It increases the ability to provide effective learning experiences to learners who might have been out of touch or maybe less in tune with the goals in a more traditional classroom situation. We also wanted to provide some organizational skills training. So that's something that we struggle with at all educational levels, but at this level we wanted to start building with that. We wanted to start looking at how we could work into our learning experiences some long-term projects that involve not just specific skills, but also organizational planning and leadership skills, leadership activities, even at a very early stage in education. We also wanted to provide an opportunity to discover ideas. So instead of just convey things in a traditional, knowledge environment, we wanted to provide discovery experiences. And finally, we wanted to inspire children to have a somewhat different relationship with technology, to become producers and not just consumers of technology. It's hard to argue that people aren't computer literate anymore the way we did 10 years ago. Everyone knows how to update their Facebook page, and everyone knows how to, browse the web. But what we don't know is how to create things of our own sometimes. And so that was one of our goals as well in terms of technology education, was to create producers of technology rather than just consumers of technology. Right? So here's what we did. We built this program, and we built it around computer programming. We said, we're going to hand these students the tools to do some really basic, really simple computer programming tasks that will let them get their hands directly on mathematical ideas and abstractions and manipulate them and see the results right away. And so we went out there and we found computer programming tools. This is a logo for the programming language that we use, a language called Haskell. It's not a normal sort of computer programming language, but it's one that's more math-based and algebraic in its construction. So we were able to sort of take that and say, hey, look, here's this tool that's out there. We can pull it in and we can incorporate it into this program. Unfortunately, not all of the tools were available for us, so we did what we often do, and that is we developed some of our own tools as well. So this is a screenshot of the development environment that we created for these kids to use. What it is it's just a screen split in half. On the left-hand side, they type what they mean, they click the run button, and on the right-hand side, they immediately see the results. We built this as a web-based tool. We do that a lot in the business setting. We build web-based tools because it's easier, right? There's no deployment challenges. There's no information technology challenges. Well, the same is true in an education setting. So all that students need is any kind of a device with access to a web browser, and they can interact with this program. Right? But we also tried to make it an intensely interactive experience. So while most other alternatives that we looked at had a long cycle between performing the work and seeing the results, we wanted to build a tool that has an immediate turnaround. You do the work, you click one button, and you see the results right away. So those were the tools we put together, and then we embarked on this program, and we've been teaching this in a trial class, as I said, for the last year. Here's some of the outcomes. We've had students build pictures, we've had them build animations, and ultimately we've had them build and design their own video games. And here are some shots of 3 of the different games built by students in this year's class in this Code World program. So we've had a lot of success. These are rather elaborate creations for someone at the 11 to 13-year-old age range, and they enjoyed it. They had a lot of fun with it, and they expressed themselves creatively. So, instead of following step-by-step laboratory exercises or laboratory procedures, they actually designed these things. They put together the step-by-step processes, and they created the final result, and were able to see that and interact with it. So we were pretty happy with how this worked. The takeaway from all of this is that we were able to take our learning expertise, which has traditionally been in the business and professional development area, and we were able to take it and contribute it in an education setting and have some really good results with it by applying a lot of the same principles that really apply in a business setting as well. Okay, so that's our Code World program, and one of my points here was just to talk about that because it was really fun and it was a great experience for us this year. But my second goal here is to tell you, what did we learn from engaging in this experience that we can apply back into the business and professional learning settings? One thing we need to think about is what kinds of feedback do we get from our learning experiences? We're all professional, learning professionals. We provide these kinds of experiences, whether it's in classroom training, whether it's online learning or e-learning, whether it's mentoring and coaching relationships, or hopefully a combination between all 3. We provide these learning experiences to our learners, and then what kinds of feedback do we get back from them? Well, one thing we do is course evaluations. We ask them questions at the end of their learning experience, and we collect that data and we look over it for hints about how we might improve. Another thing we do is assessments. We give students, our learners, assessments at the end of their learning experiences, and we try to measure the effectiveness of our training. Most learning organizations that I've been involved with in the last 15 years, this is about the extent of the feedback that they get from their learning experiences. They run student evaluations, they run assessments maybe, but what they don't do is they don't track the long-term outcomes from the learning experiences that they've created. K-12 education is very different. In K-12 education, you get to sit down with the same learners for an entire year, and you get to meet with them multiple times a week throughout that year, and you get to observe firsthand what the long-term results of their experiences were. And so we should ask ourselves, what are our learning goals when we design learning experiences in a business setting? Is it to make students feel positive? Because when we provide them with evaluation forms, what we're measuring is whether they feel positive about the education, the learning experience they've just been through. Is it to have them memorize information? Because that's really what we're testing on in assessments a lot of the time. Let's be honest, we provide these assessments on the last day of the training or the following week. We're really measuring whether they were able to memorize the information that they encountered in that learning experience. Or even worse, the skills of actually passing these assessments, predicting the answers from the wording of our questions. We run into this a lot where we just run into some learners who are very good at passing assessments, but not because they've learned the content, but because they've learned those fundamental skills of interpreting what the person asking wants to hear. So these are the goals that we evaluate as if we're aiming for. But what we're really aiming for is this: creative problem solving skills. What we really want to do when we provide learning settings, in a business setting as well, is we want to build creative problem solvers. We want to provide people with the skills that they need to apply those skills and solve problems in unique ways. We can't predict the challenges that we're going to face. We can instead only predict the skills that we might provide, and then hope that we can give people the fluency with those skills to meet the challenges as they come up. So this is the real lesson I want to sort of pivot on here, is that we need to look at what we can learn from more long-term feedback experiences, and that working in the K-12 setting has given us a more long-term feedback experience, and has given us a lot of interesting insights in what learning can bring for us that that are somewhat different, I think, from the insights that we get from in a business setting. And to put this together, I'd like to talk to you about this model we developed, and just to summarize our experiences and what we learned throughout the course of the year, and that is that there are 4 steps to lead up to that creative problem-solving goal. The first of those steps is we need to impart knowledge. The second is we need to build skills. The third is we need to integrate those skills. And finally, we need to work on creativity. Now, we're pretty good at the knowledge step of this. The knowledge step is we teach people the information we'd like them to know, and we do an okay job at it. Okay? The skills we're generally fairly okay at as well. When we teach classroom education settings, we often have maybe laboratory exercises that walk people through step by step the skills that we're trying to impart. Or in human resources training, you might see role-playing experiences. Here's the situation, have people play different roles and work out the particular skill we're working on right now. This third step is where it starts to get a little bit hairy, though. So now we've imparted the knowledge, we've imparted the skills, but what we need to focus a little bit more on in our learning settings is integration of those skills. In 1 week's time, we're just not going to build fluency in every skill that we're experiencing, but what we can work on is helping people understand how they're going to better integrate these new skills into the job that they perform after they leave our educational setting. So this integration is an important step. In apprenticeships, we call it, we have the word automaticity to refer to this, that someone needs to work on this skill until it becomes automatic for them, because as long as you're focused on the individual skill, you can't focus on applying it in creative and unique ways. You can't be an expert painter if you're still focusing on every stroke of the brush. You can't be a great carpenter if you're trying to concentrate on how to hammer in a nail. And so what we want to do is not just build the knowledge and build the skills, but also help people integrate that into their work experiences so that they can work towards the automaticity that they need to become creative problem solvers. Once we've done this integration, then we can start focusing on creativity. And at the creativity level, here's something that we don't do a really great job of either. So creativity is where we say, okay, now that we've built the skills, we've helped people to practice the skills, we've helped them to build a little bit of comfort zone with those skills. Now let's help them, let's try to get them to solve some creative problems, to do some unique things that are not provided for them step by step in the curriculum guide. So something that might even have an open-ended answer that might lead to a discussion instead of a resolution. These kinds of things we need to do a lot more of in our learning settings. So what? So you've been watching me talk a little bit, and I think we've talked about some really interesting and fun things. We've talked about this Code World program and what Brindle Waye did in the K-12 education setting to help students with mathematics skills and with technology skills. And we've talked about what we've learned from that we can apply even in business and professional development settings. So the Code World program was a great experience for us. The first thing I want you to take away from this talk is become involved in the community. Look for opportunities to not just, do the professional and business development thing, but also to become a little bit more involved in the community around you. Not just because it's good for the community, but because it's good for you as well. I learned a lot of things after being 15 years in the professional learning setting In the business learning setting, I learned a lot of things from this 1 year in the education setting that I can apply now in a business environment that I wouldn't have experienced had I not become involved in this community outreach program. But the second thing I want you to take away is this 4-step process that you need to build first knowledge, then skills, but also focus on how to integrate those skills into the students' job experience. After they leave this classroom, how are they going to still use this skill? And then finally work on building creativity and encourage them to look for new and unique ways to apply those skills. So thank you for your time here. I hope you enjoyed talking about our K-12 education program, Code World, and how you can take the things we learned from that and apply it in business as well. Thank you.